shade at the top, it's a lonely place. When you find out the ops ain't the only snakes, and your spouse only know what you don't erase. The world only know you by your worst mistake.
What's up, guys? It's Chris Spags here for this first episode of this unnamed podcast, which will probably end up uncreatively being called the Chris Spags Podcast, because there's nothing else here for me to really call it that's clever and involves my name in some way. But we're here with it. It's a little bit of a slow start for me this morning. It's 9 a.m. here on the West Coast, and honestly, the weather here has just been kicking my ass. I didn't think I was a person who gets seasonally depressed, but I guess it does make sense in New York. I would kind of hole up for the winter and just order in and get a little fat, but not too fat, but fat enough where then in February you got to have that like cold, hard look in the mirror where you go, all right, now we're going to get this shit in order. But out here in LA, it's weird because I move here and there's a certain assumption of quality that you get from the situation where you come here and you assume it's going to be 60 degrees, 70 degrees every day, and you'll be wearing your board shorts. You'll be like, hey, man, what's going on? Like, great, gnarly morning and whatever. And then in reality, it's just you're walking down the street with your dogs, and there's a rain, which has been going on here for about the last month and a half. It's the equivalent of people just yelling shame at you as you walk down the street and spitting in your face. It's a very unpleasant rain that's not doing a ton for me. But we persevere. It's all we can do, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I feel bad complaining about the weather now that I know that there are probably a lot of people on the East Coast who are listening to this podcast. We're taking a dive into me rambling into a microphone, and they're sitting in 12 inches of snow right now, and they're like, thanks for complaining about 50-degree weather and rain. But I have to wear a Canada Goose coat to walk my dog, so I get very cold, and that makes me feel a little bit like a nana. But it does generally make me look cool out there, so that's really all I can ask for out in LA. Me and my sweatpants and a Canada Goose coat, basically the only human interaction I have most weekdays. Outside of a Skype camera or whatever, but it is what it is. So I guess that kind of takes me to the first topic I really want to hit on, and I think the first question a lot of people who are listening to this will ask is, why are you doing a podcast? And clearly it's because the market is not oversaturated enough. There aren't enough podcasts out there, I think, would really be the thing. Not every person in the world has a podcast yet, so that's really the goal, is everybody to have a podcast. But for me, it's really a bit of a different thing where I really should have done a podcast years ago. I've always enjoyed kind of the radio talk medium. I think people call that talk radio, but I just dyslexic that up pretty good. But I think people enjoy that talk radio medium, and I've always listened to it growing up. I always liked listening. I would actually stay up late listening to WFAN and the random New Yorker assholes on there calling in and complaining about the Rangers at 2 a.m. Like, that's a perfectly sane thing to do. So to care about hockey in the first place, which is a crazy person move, but to just be up at night really unable to sleep, and you're like, well, what? Derek Jeter's he's an overrated shortstop, and I want to talk about this right now, WFAN. And it's like, that's not good radio, I think, fundamentally, but there's just something about hearing somebody talk, and I've always wanted to be on that side of the exchange. And I guess that takes me back a little bit. I guess to go back further in the past, before obviously, if you're following this, I assume you know I worked at Barstool Sports. It's a very prominent website who is also now known for their podcast business. Them and The Ringer both doing a great job in the media side, making a ton of money and making great podcasts and getting all that sweet podcast dough in the door. But I actually helped get going that podcast division at Barstool. It existed already with some of the guys over there who had done a show called KFC Radio, which is very popular, still going now. But they weren't really monetizing it in a meaningful way. And because of my experience at Guyism, where we had started a podcast, basically just engineered a way for it to get a ton of listens, which was just putting it on the site-wide so people would click it, or they would accidentally click it. Who knows what they would do with it. But we ended up able to sell some ads, went to Barstool, then I knew KFC Radio. I found it pretty entertaining when I'd come across it before. Helped those guys get going, helped them get going on Podcast One, helped them start monetizing that better. Also came up with some of the concepts for things that they did moving forward in terms of promotion and all that. So I was involved there, but before the site really got big, before we opened the New York office, I had a shot to do a podcast as part of Kevin's thing. And unfortunately, just kind of didn't take the initiative to do it, didn't force the issue, and could have gotten, the promotion and whatever, and had talked to Kevin about it. And he, kind of supported me enough where he said yeah, you should do something like this. And I just didn't get there. And it kind of bums me out that I didn't do it, because now, as I mentioned, everybody and their mother has a podcast, and I've just been here writing an email. I consider myself a pretty smart person in terms of reading the media landscape, and I think most of my career choices back that out. I think I have an issue of leaving places when I probably shouldn't, right when they're on the cusp of big things. But I think I have a pretty good read on the media landscape in general. And I liked podcasts and I listened to podcasts, and I never really felt comfortable putting myself out there with one. Because at Barstool, I felt like it was a little bit too self-promotional. And at that point, I was just trying not to make waves, I was very happy with the situations, working from home, writing like 5 or 6 things a day. It really couldn't have been much easier in hindsight. And I didn't have the initiative to do more. And obviously, as you get older, you get that perspective. But I really should have done more, should have done a podcast years ago. So this is now the fruits of the labor, where I could have had a podcast where I was talking to people, doing interesting things. Now it's just me sitting in a room, not smoking weed before doing a podcast and hoping that it comes out coherent. So let's pray for that. There's a chance I smoke weed during the podcast or before future podcasts. So don't get used to that. Don't get spoiled by getting my sobriety at 9 a.m. on the West Coast. But yeah, so these are sort of the main reasons I'm doing it. I guess there are some other reasons too. I mentioned this in the email, and it actually was really the moment where I was like, you know what, just fucking do it. Is the podcast Come Down, which is a really, really bad name for a podcast, and their logo. If you search it on iTunes, and you really should, just listen, pick any episode. There are some that are funny. Construction Boys is pretty funny, a funny one to get into. That was the first one I listened to. But really, just skip in there, get into any of them. The podcast logo is just like ejaculate spelling out Come Town, not real ejaculate. That would be both impractical and hard to do. But a graphic that looks like semen or like a ghost walk through a wall. That's what the Come Town logo is. And those guys just is basically 3 comedians of moderate success. One of whom I've tweeted with once, this guy Nick Mullins, is very funny. When I was at Barstool, and he actually wasn't one of those guys, super liberal Twitter guy, or at least in those circles, and wasn't somebody who hated Barstool. So that stuck out to me as a guy where I was like, good, you're like not one of the kind of one of the sheeple out there who just do the stupid hate everybody thing, because that's what anybody who's a Democrat on Twitter has to do. And I say that as somebody who leans liberally, but I just hate the mindset of, oh, we have to be on here and we have to be getting angry at something every given day, because I'm just a person who likes to exist and likes to like just kind of, I think the marijuana part of me really just likes the chill vibes and not dramatic things and not whatever. But also, like, I don't get any joy out of trolling. There was some weird dude on Twitter, I guess, who was also affiliated with the Barstool universe, who people on the Barstool subreddit had thought was me, I guess. Some guy DM'd me about this week recently, so that was the only reason it's popping into my head right now. And I guess the guy does some funny trolling of, like, Barstool personalities, and a girl I used to date who's like a Barstool, ancillary personality, I guess we can call her. I guess he says a lot of mean things to her. And the guy DM me like, man, your trolling has been top notch. Like, just like mama used to make, a little troll. And it's like, I don't like trolling. Like, I don't find that interesting. Like, I don't find being on Twitter at all interesting. I hate the self-promotional narcissistic aspect of it, where I don't really have anything to say for the most part. Like, I have a lot of things to say if you're hanging out with me. And you're probably noticing that right now, because I think I've gone on already 10 different branched tangents as we've just talked about this intro here. But I don't really like just sitting on social media and making like jokes designed to appeal to. I also have a really bad weed cough, so that's going to come up sometimes on this podcast. But I don't enjoy just sitting there and being like, oh, my seamless delivery came late today, but at least I got to hang out with all my friends. Ha ha ha. And like that probably wouldn't do that well on Twitter, but you know the kind of tweet I'm talking about. I don't enjoy that. I also don't enjoy like watching The Bachelor and watching the Academy Awards and just commenting on things. Like, when I'm done with work, which is all online and all spent usually, I mean, for years now, it's been spent creating content for people online. When I'm done with that, I'm just done. I don't want to be on my laptop. I'm on my phone. I'm looking at things. I'm texting people. I'm swiping on various apps, swiping up on Instagram, swiping right on any girl with breasts and a face that looks like better than a Halloween mask, I think would really be the approach to go with for me. But more than that, I think it's just that I don't like engaging with people. I'm not an antisocial person, but I just don't. It feels like every time you tweet something, you're just stepping up to a stage, and then maybe like nobody will hear you. Maybe you're at an empty stage at Fire Festival, and people are just eating pieces of Wonder Bread and the ejaculate of a nearby Jamaican man. Is that even near Jamaica? It's near enough Jamaica where a guy could have jerked off onto a sandwich, and then that's what they gave them. So I think that's probably fine. But I don't like, I don't like that feeling of where you just go up and then you all of a sudden you're on and people are going to judge you for what you say, or they're going to misinterpret it because you only have so many words. And really also you have to be brief on there because people's attention spans are dog shit. It's not even like the days where I first started working online where like you could write a blog post. People would at least read the blog post, or at least read the first paragraph of the blog post and kind of get what you were talking about. Now people don't even click the thing. And I'm clearly the most familiar with that, with my personal battles with overweight pop stars. But I think really it makes it hard for me because I'm a person who feels often misunderstood, I think would be the best way to put it. Hopefully not in like a school shooter way, because I really don't have that sort of toxic masculinity part of things, but misunderstood in a way where like I say things because I don't think before I say things. And then when I want to like really convey the thesis behind the stupid thing that I said, sometimes you can't undo the stupid thing that you said, and then you're just fucked. And that's probably not the best for dating, for sure. That much I can say, but also just not a great thing in general, where I don't feel like I convey my thoughts well enough because I don't think them well enough. So personal issue for sure, but one that keeps me off Twitter for the most part. But you know, like it's a lot of self-promotional stuff that I just don't do and I don't find comfortable. So I'm going to try to do it a little more. I'm at least going to create this content and put it out in the world and hope that whatever minute following of people I have will just listen to it. And then it will somehow result in me making that Come Town money, because that is a podcast that has like 2,500 subs on Patreon. And then they're paying all $5 each. Those guys make like 12 grand a month just off their podcast. And they just do one bonus episode a week or one bonus episode a month, whatever it may be. And then there are a lot of other things like that. So I think this isn't a money grab for me, to be clear. This is more of a situation where at work, I'm very happy with my job right now. I'm doing a lot of great editorial content in daily fantasy sports. I enjoy trying to break down NFL and basketball, and baseball's coming up. I enjoy that too. It was fun. I was learning that really on the job last year. This year I should be a little better at it, but it's fun. It still feels a little weird sometimes because there are people who are clearly in tough financial spots who are relying on you and hoping that you're going to be their quick fix and your way out of like credit card debt, or you're their way out of, you know, buying a house or this car accident they can't afford. And they're getting into daily fantasy sports to try to make up that hole in their life. And the reality is most people on daily fantasy sports are not winning just because of the numbers. That's how it works. And a lot of people don't play it the right way. And it's honestly took me really until a couple months ago to figure out the right way to approach it. So I wasn't hemorrhaging money for stretches. Like I would still win, but I'd still like lose a lot for times. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into that. And it's fun doing that job, but I don't get to talk about anything else now because we're a professional company and it's getting more professional, and there are ad deals and stuff going on that require not deviating from the content at all, which is great. Like, it's fine. I enjoy the sport. I hope somehow it's a way for me to become a general manager one day where people are just like, man, that guy really did a good job predicting that LeBron James is going to have a good day, because nobody else could have foreseen that. So we should hire this guy into our office. He should be an analytics guy. And then I would be completely lost and they'd be like, oh, this dude's an idiot. But but I think up until that point, it would be pretty dope. So that's sort of the hope there. Or that ESPN's like, hey, that guy who always wears backwards hats and video content, that's a dude we need to be the voice of the people on our network. Don't think I'm going to get in there, though. But I do think that it is a possibility that goes somewhere, and it's, you know, and it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable for me. It's still more fun. I think it might have been a little more fun for me in hindsight, which again, you know, I'm a hard-headed person who just does stupid shit and makes choices before fully thinking them through. Might have been a little more fun writing Barstool type blogs. I think I can say that without anybody being too surprised, but it's still been a good experience overall. But I just miss talking. I just miss talking like a human being. I miss talking honestly. And, you know, I still have to probably watch some third rails. I can't make all the jokes I want to make because you can't make all the jokes you want to make now. I think really if you want to be a professional human being, and not only a professional human being, but a person who just avoids the bullshit of other people, where like the other day on a live stream, I talked about how on chat roulette, there was a thing where, it was a popular thing because like news websites wrote about it, where Arab guys would just pop on a chat roulette. And chat roulette, if you don't remember, if you're a younger person, just a website where you'd browse around and random people would pop up on camera across from you. And then that was it. And you'd either talk to them or you'd maybe there would be an attractive girl, which seems pretty unlikely, but more often than not, it would be just like an Arab dude from wherever in the Middle East, just jacking it on camera and just stroking his sand scarred penis. I should keep his penis in his pants when he's out in the sand, I think would be the move. But it was just a thing that happened a lot, and it was like a popular, like I would say, meme for the time. It wasn't a meme like the Pikachu being surprised meme or the butterfly guy being like, is this whatever meme. It was just like a thing that people knew online. And I happened to mention that in the show, and it wasn't a big deal to me, but then they had to take the show down because they're working on a deal with a large company that is very reluctant to talk about stuff. And the guy I did the show with also went on a tangent, which I guess wasn't that bad, but it said the word black guys, and like, who fucking knows? So it's just one of those things where, like, if I can't talk honestly in one spot, and I miss being able to do that. So I'm just going to do that here. And I guess this all takes it back to why I'm doing a podcast. So these are the reasons why I am doing a podcast. Actually, one other reason too, while we're talking about Patreon, people making money and being more successful than me. So there's a girl who was on the Tinder roundup that I did for Barstool years ago at this point, and I think probably closer to when I started it than when I ended it. So we're talking probably, I think we're going to be on 4 years this month was when I first started it. So about maybe 4 years ago, she was in there, slowly picked up followers because she has, I believe, 34 eye breasts. Because I remember the joke I made was that, like, when them titties so big, it becomes an imaginary number. And while people may think there isn't a craftsmanship to putting together the Tinder roundup, I can tell you for a fact that was a well-crafted joke. If you're making an imaginary numbers joke on Barstool about a girl's gigantic, stupid, like big, they're so stupid looking, they're so big, and they're real, and they're just fucking retarded. So I'm just, whatever. I shouldn't say a word on here, but I said it. It's out there. I'm not editing this podcast, so it is what it is. Yeah, so just big, dumb, idiot breasts. And then she's going on Patreon. She went on Patreon, made an account, I think, February 28th. It's now March 2nd as I record this. And she has $6,000 in Patreon subs. 500-something guys have signed up for photos of her or videos of her, 2 different categories. And I just wanted to smash my face onto everything. I'm not a guy, I'm not a red pill type guy. Like, I think everything that women get right now is great. It's fantastic that women get better because, like, guys are pretty shitty to women. Guys continue to be pretty shitty to women overall. I think maybe the wage gap a little bit overstated in some industries, and I think in particular the female hiring process, where a lot of women do go out of their way to hire women instead of men, I think is something people don't talk about enough. Oh, good, my dog's coming over here. This is not the time. I appreciate it. It's not video. You're useless right now. You offer nothing to the equation. Get out of here. So I think that it's fucked up that you can be, I mean, literally, she's a lovely human being. Like, I've talked to her, I've never met her or anything, just a person I've talked to online who occasionally, like, Snapchats me, like, nice little friendly things. Nothing even close to romantic or sexual or interesting, really, in any way, just bullshit that you do. I like to keep up with somebody from afar. But she is a funny person, but she's not somebody who's like, whoa, like, you're a real firecracker. It's actually kind of annoying sometimes. I hope she doesn't hear this podcast, but, like, I think her shtick is a little annoying where it's like, I'm a girl, I don't care, I'm kind of gross. And it's like, I don't want to see that out of my girls online. But I think when you're like a 5'2" girl with breasts that are size of your entire body, everything else just kind of goes by the wayside. So anyway, she's making $6,000 ever launching a Patreon for 2 days. And I don't expect people to value an email that's well written and sometimes has been heartfelt and sometimes has been insightful, sometimes has been very personal. But is at least, I think, entertaining. The roundup part, I would say entertaining week in, week out. I feel confident enough saying that. Kind of sucks to do something that had a following and then, you didn't quite do anything with it. I've talked about this before. There's an Instagram out there called The Tinder Blog. There's an Instagram out there called The Tinder Roundup. These are all things that I did, and then people just took the idea and put it on Instagram. Now they have 1 million followers. Doesn't have 1 million followers? Me. Doesn't even post Instagram? Me. So it's a bit of a shitty situation as a content creator where you literally could do nothing as a girl. Like, this girl doesn't even intend to be posting her naked body or anything. She's not going to be, at least that's her intention. I think that all goes by the wayside once the money starts coming in and you're like, oh shit, how do I keep this money coming in? And then all of a sudden it's like you pop a tit out then it's like, oh, we pop. But it's like a sneaky thing where you're doing like an Instagram live video and you pop one out. Or it's like, oh, you do like a little video where like, you are like, oh my God. And like, I'm doing a hand bra. I'm so crazy. And then you do one where it's like, oh, here's me like tastefully naked for a photo shoot, but you're covering everything up, which I don't even know you could with the 34i boobs. Like, I think that would be, you got to like do that with some sort of comedy oversized hand, like a fly swatter hand. But I ultimately like, that's what the path to revenue is until eventually you're just getting dicks. Like that girl who used to be on Boy Meets World, I think her name is Maitland Ward. I feel like I'm actually acting as though I don't know that's her name, even though I fully know that's her name. And I think, in fact, I might have jerked off to her the porn film she did this week, in which it's her and another girl sharing the love of a black gentleman. So very racially inclusive, which I personally look for when scrapping one out. But that's what the industry is now. There's a lot of girls who do that. There's a lot of girls who do the moving target thing where guys are signing up, assuming they're going to be getting nudes from that girl. But in reality, they're just getting like her posting the same photos of herself on Instagram. There's another girl I know who's, who I do know personally, and I've spent time with, who's an Instagram girl of some note. And she gets like some sponsorships for clothes things or whatever, but isn't really making money off of it. But she did one app where basically like, you just text the girl and then the girl replies and then she gets paid for replying, which seems like the saddest thing in the world to me, but she apparently made money off of that. I think my point is it's really easy to make money as a girl online right now. And it's not hard to make money as a guy necessarily, but it's certainly, you have to have everything buttoned up and you have to be a guy who's like engaging with his audience every day and like who's doing funny stuff and like going outside the box. And for a girl, it's like, you just got to have big, dumb titties that look stupid. And that's enough for guys to be like, yep, I'll buy in here in the hopes that this leads to something. And then 500 guys do that. And all of a sudden, this girl's making more and she's making in whatever shitty hairstylist job or whatever she has. So I don't know. That's me drinking water. This is another part, which I'm gonna have to get over. Doing a podcast solo, there's nobody to bounce things off of here. So like, if I don't plan things out or my brain doesn't go on a tangent, I'm fucked. I got no content. Like I got nobody to talk to and be like, so how's your day? Like, oh, tell me that crazy story. Like it's just empty chairs here. Unless my dogs are going to start talking, which would really make for an interesting podcast, but probably one that would reveal too many items. I think it's probably less than ideal. So that's the long answer to why do a podcast. That's the apparently 20-minute long answer to why do a podcast now. But that is why I'm doing a podcast now. I think I've forgotten one discipline which I always told people when I first started a website. People would always ask like, what is the key to starting a website? Like, how'd you become successful at it? And the thing is just putting up a website and writing on it every day and writing on it multiple times a day and writing things that people want to read or creating things that people want to see. And I just stopped doing that for some reason. I should have done it the second that I knew I was leaving Barstool. I should have done it on the side while I was at Barstool. I should have had my own podcast if they wanted to fuck over Swipe Drunk Love, which was a really good podcast. And if it had kept existing, I can pretty much guarantee you would be like a big deal right now, which is a really frustrating thing for me, but it is what it is. I think if I just do something, it'll start to pay off eventually. And if nothing else, it's at least a creative outlet, which makes me happy. So that's what this podcast will be. It will be me having therapy with myself, talking to nobody. Maybe eventually if I ever upgrade my computer where I could live stream, maybe I'll do it live so I'm not totally alone. But anyway, just don't be surprised if you start seeing some more stuff like this from me. I may also do a wrestling thing, not actually trying to wrestle because though that would really be the dream, but I might do a video thing where I'm going to do video vlog style, as the kids would call it, vlog style reviews of wrestling shows, because I think that's a spot that people aren't doing right now. And I think from my day job with the daily fantasy stuff, I've learned YouTube SEO well enough where I could do that. So it might be something I try out in this run to WrestleMania season, but we'll see. I'm just going to try some stuff and hope it works out because I need change. And I think that's also what the podcast is about. So we answered the why am I doing a podcast now. So what is the podcast about? This is going to be a podcast about a podcast. So every episode is going to be me being like, so here's why I'm doing a podcast. And then it's going to be, so here's what we're going to do with this podcast. I'm never going to give you any actual content. It's going to be all meta talk about making a podcast. But no, like, what's the podcast going to be about? I don't really know. I don't really know what we're going to do here. I just know I wanted to turn on the microphones and do it on a regular basis. I just said microphones. Turn on the microphone. There's one microphone in front of me. There isn't even a mixer. I'm recording directly in a GarageBand on my computer. So there's no professional setup here. Even if I wanted to have another person on right now, I don't know that my computer could handle it because I got one of those MacBook Retinas when they first came out. And the processing power is not that great. It's 12-inch one, so it's not technically a mini, but it's like mini enough, kind of like my dick. No, not at all like my dick. That is a proud tall redwood that a Native American once planted and then cried when it was torn down by people who were foraging. And is foraging a thing where you tear down a tree? I don't know. A really strong forager once tore down the tree, and the Native American guy had a single tear stream down his cheek. But I don't even know what I was saying. So the podcast, I don't really know what to do it about. I think it's just going to be me talking, hoping things are interesting. Probably going to have some segments and stuff as we go. But really, I also thought maybe I should call my friends and just put them on. Because, like, I don't call people. I don't like talking on the phone. But I think it might be interesting just to call some people and see what's up. And not anybody who's famous. Just be like, hey, check in with my buddy in Atlanta who is both a software developer and is trying to be a rapper. Which he's also a black guy, to be clear, so I think that helps make that a little bit more understandable. I think maybe just calling some people, catching up on the show might be interesting, but who knows? If nothing else, it will be me here rambling. And if you have stuck with me through this first half hour or whatever it's been, you're probably down for anything. So stick with me. We'll do some stuff. I also will say right now, I don't care about interviewing people. I don't find that interesting. I know that's how you get more people to listen to your podcast. Is, oh, this guy is super famous. He should come on your podcast, and then his audience will listen to that. I don't care. I don't really care what anybody has to say for the most part. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like a lot of people out there. I like a lot of the Ringer podcasts. I mentioned I like Cumtown. I like a lot of the Earwolf ones, like Comedy Bang Bang. How did this get made? I think a lot of those are very funny. But ultimately, like, and actually, no, that's not true. I would have those guys on a podcast, but why are you going to do my podcast? I'm just some fucking dude literally sitting in sweatpants at 9 a.m. talking into a microphone with very little plan. So why would they do that? So ultimately, I don't think the people who I'd want to interview would be worth interviewing. And I don't think I would care enough to try to talk to random little people. I do think one thing I should have done, which is kind of my bad, I should have really reunited with Alyssa Rose, who we did the Swipe Drunk Love podcast with, a little reunion show, because I think that's something where the world's ready for that now. It's been, I think, almost 2 years since we've been off the air, and since I left, it's going to be 2 years in June since I left Barstool, but might be something to dabble in the future. But in general, though, I don't really care about what's going on in other people's lives. I care about just talking about stupid things. One of the first things I want to talk about, and this is something that I did talk about in the Spags email, and if you're coming to this, I assume you're a member of that, but if you're not, it's at spagsemail.com. You can sign up. Basically, something I send out an email once a week, features some little intro from me talking about whatever things that pops into my mind as I write it, and then some little talk about a topic of the week, like Robert Kraft and his zest for being jacked off by people at massage parlors of middling credibility. Or whatever strike Netflix shows. I don't know that the emails sounds the most interesting the way I'm selling it. The Tinder roundup is probably the most appealing part, but if you're not on that, go sign up at spagsemail.com, I guess. But yeah, so I talked about it in there, but so technically this week, if we are going to go by the rules of the EBDB, which is that everything that is yours, you share with an Eskimo bro, I technically won an Oscar this week, and I think that's a pretty big moment for me. I don't have sound effects, but I'm going to put in my own clapping. Let's pretend there's another person here who's clapping for me, and it's not just me narcissistically doing it for myself for the sake of a bit. But it's my first Oscar win, so that's pretty cool. But Rami Malek won the Best Actor Oscar, which doesn't sit well to me because, what? He just did an impression, a perfectly fine impression in a movie about a guy with AIDS. And, guys with AIDS are the most ones who are going to get Oscars. Like, when you play a role of either an ugly woman, if you're a pretty woman who plays an ugly woman, or a guy playing a guy with AIDS, you are a shoo-in. And even more than that, Rami Malek was more of a shoo-in because he did a role that was a guy with AIDS that was also an impression of a famous person, which they also love. They love giving Oscars to that. So I don't think it was that worthy of an Oscar win, but we did it. And I think that's what matters. Rami Malek and I are Eskimo bros through a girl who I had gone out with, who I don't like to give specific timelines because everything's all blurry. Everything kind of flows together. And, sometimes you see people at the same time as other people, and it's never good business to talk about that. But it was a time in my life in which there was nothing else going on. And I dated a girl who worked for a premier fashion brand who's known for their asshole-looking scarves. And in fact, there's like a wrestling character for this new company called AEW, All Elite Wrestling, which is like the cool internet wrestling guys who have like big influencer-style followings. And they're launching a new company. And their bad guy character just wears this company's signature scarf and everything. So that's the company this girl worked for, but I won't say it. So now it's like totally fine that I didn't say it and I didn't give anything away. But she worked in entertainment relations for the company, and she, I guess, had dressed a lot of male celebrities. Like she had recently, when we had hung out, she dressed Michael B. Jordan. She dressed Denzel Washington's kid, John David Washington. Is that John Washington? Denzel Jr. I think it's I think it's John David. I should know that because actually I really like him on Ballers, but it didn't really resonate with me. She didn't only dress black men, though. She did dress Rami Malek at another job for another high-profile, like, fashion-y thing. And of course, she slept with Rami Malek because that's what a professional woman does when working with celebrities. You should certainly dabble in that. It's actually kind of funny because we had gone out and she was like, yeah, like one time this coworker made a joke about like, oh yeah, like you should just fuck him, like about like some celebrity guy. And she was like so offended about it because like she wasn't that close with the woman who I guess made that comment, and she felt like it was an affront to like her. It's like, you literally did just fuck like another client, at least one. Like, I don't know, like that was the only one that came up amongst us. I didn't ask like for a full IMDb credit of the dudes who had deep dicked her down while she was putting them in some asshole suit made out of velour or whatever for the Spirit Awards. That's the time where you want to really get in there. But anyway, so that she had hooked up with him, and I was I wouldn't say I was excited about that. I don't like knowing about girls' conquests. Like, I don't want to know who's hooking up with anybody. Like another girl. And this is really just a testament to the big year I've had as an Eskimo bro. Another girl who I've written about in the email, and I think was also in a premium email where I really detailed the heartbreak that she brought to my life. But she had, when we were kind of initially starting to like stop talking, she had went out to Los Angeles and hooked up back when I was still on the East Coast and she was living in Boston. She had hooked up with Julian Edelman, though she did claim, and I had heard through the grapevine, that she had just blown him, which, again, Boston girls are the biggest scum of the world, where they all know everything and they all hide each other's secrets. They all hide the athletes' secrets, too, unless they're, like, really bad guys. They all hide the terrible things they do because Boston fans are really a unique breed of people. Boston women, in particular, a unique breed of, like, wanting to be famous and wanting to be close to fame, but, like, also getting off on the idea of being, like, too good to like act like a groupie, as opposed to like the girls in LA who were like, sure, like, yeah, legs akimbo, let's go, and they'll go anywhere just to fucking get in that chance of refracted spotlight. But Boston girls like it, but they like to pretend like they don't like it. So anyway, so Julian Edelman, also a sort of Eskimo bro, at least a mouth Eskimo bro, probably more though, because like, really, can you ever trust a girl who's like, yeah, I just blew him? Like, what the just. Also, like, isn't that more work? Like, I feel like I don't know, whatever. I feel like if I were a girl, I guess you don't want to get your numbers up necessarily, but if Julian Edelman, sure, like, just fucking lay there and take his stupid dick. Julian Edelman also, I've mentioned this before somewhere. I think it might have been on one of the live streams for my day job before we could, like, not talk about anything. Julian Edelman also called her coach, which I thought was funny. Like, he would call her, like, yeah, coach. Like, oh, you want a drink, coach? Like, call her coach. I think he called her coach actually while they were doing I didn't fully ask for clarification on this, but I'm pretty sure he also called her coach while they were actually doing sex stuff. So if you are a Boston fan, know that now. Julian Edelman, big fan of calling girls coach while they do sex stuff with them. But it's been a big year for my Eskimo bros, and I think that's sort of cool. I guess, like, if we're gonna say that their accomplishments are mine because of that shared experiences with the same women. And I do think, when I did shrooms at one time, which maybe a conversation talk about another podcast, because that was an experience which I feel like is worth addressing at some more length that I don't necessarily want to get into today. I think there was something with that experience where I realized the connectivity of everything, where you really are connected to all the stuff that's happened in the past. And this is one where, again, I should save this to go in more length. It's going to really make me sound like some hippie asshole, and that's pretty far from my brand. But you really recognize a lot of the things. Like when I did shrooms, I had a friend out here who we were like sitting on my couch, and there was I happened to see in my little like entertainment unit thing, which is just one of those cube things that are supposed to be a bookshelf, but I call it an entertainment unit because the TV's wall mounted. What are you doing a fucking entertainment unit for? No, don't be an asshole. But in there is like the DVDs of the Chappelle Show, which we had watched when he came out to LA when I was in college. He had like some weird thing where he was the same black rapper, software developer friend. He had this issue in college where he basically just like flunked out and then left and like was trying to become a rapper then too. And then he like moved out here and like stayed with me for a while. And we would basically like hang out, smoke weed. And we watched Chappelle Show, and like the DVD was right there. And it's weird that the person then like we're back in LA, 12 years later, and the Chappelle Show DVD is still there. And like I still have an Xbox, and it's a different Xbox, but I've upgraded my Xbox significantly. I don't want to brag too much, but I've really upgraded my Xboxes since then, since I was in college. But yeah, I think that's sort of what the shrooms taught me is there's connectivity with everything. So I think in some way you are connected by these experiences. And like those PSAs always did say growing up, when you have sex with somebody, you're having sex with everybody they've had sex with. So me and Rami Malek just fucking tongues out like, us all three of us. But Julian Edelman coming in too, and he's like, hey coach, and he just grabs us both by the back of the head. So that's what we're doing. We're just a couple dudes, Eskimo broing it up, just sharing that sweet Eskimo connection. But that's sort of what I guess I'm unpacking right now. It makes me also think too, like, I guess it's cool. And I think a testament to me that I'm not trying to brag. It's a testament to me that I could hook up with the same girl who Rami Malek and who Julian Edelman would hook up. There's two different girls, but I think it really is a big cosign on what I bring to the table. But at the same time, it makes me think like, should I be better? Like, how do these girls feel afterwards? Like, let's say you hooked up with a celebrity, even if it's in the early part of their fame, and then all of a sudden you're like here on my couch with my dogs licking you while like I haphazardly finger you. Like, it has to be a bit of a drop off in quality, but maybe it's not because like the other guys are such assholes, and I at least like go to brunch and I'll make some jokes and I'll be like, some gentle ribbing, and we'll all share in the lulls, but I do put an effort. I'm a great texter. That's really where I think I shine through. Is like a lot of guys just send like photos of themselves holding a fish, I think is what I've gathered from what women tell me. But the conversation is the equivalent of a guy holding a fish. Whereas I at least try usually to banter when I'm in the mood. When I'm in a hunter's mindset where you haven't eaten in a few weeks and you got to get out there and you got to kill and eat. I think then I'll bring my text game to the table. And I think that probably does balance it out a little bit. But in terms of overall quality of life, like I see a lot of the girls who I either don't know or maybe even a couple I do who like are out in these like really stupid parties in the Hollywood Hills because they're okay looking. And like if you're okay looking in LA, there's somebody out there who's going to like try to chat you up and try to fuck you, and they're going to invite you to a party, and you're going to go because like you're in LA and you're going to try to experience these things. And then you end up hooking up with BoJack Horseman. You're like, why is this anthropomorphic horse fingering me with his hooves? That shit, he doesn't even have fingers. How is he lifting things? I'm very confused by this whole experience. That's what happens in LA. I think it's sort of weird to me to be on the other equation of that, where like I've gotten even more stripped down in a lot of ways. Like I really don't like fancy places. Well, that's not true. I like fancy meals, but I don't like going to like, I'm not trying to go to asshole lounges and like wear a suit to go drink. Like, what am I here for? What have I lived for 34 years for if I'm doing that right now? Who do I have to impress? And I think that's really the issue overall with me being single overall and not married right now is I don't want to impress anybody. And that's more the mindset you get to when you're married, and then you just like get fat and gross. And I'm not getting fat and gross. Like I had a wave recently where I was still going to the gym, so it ended up being all right. It didn't look like noticeably worse, but just eating Chick-fil-A like every day. And mostly because work was really kicking my ass and I was just like bummed. But I still put an effort. Like I've been going to the gym. I stopped eating carbs recently, though I broke. I'm going to burp. God. Nope. Wait, no, it's still coming. Wait, no. Okay, we're clear. Didn't burp into the mic, but I I would have allowed it as a tribute to Vintage Howard Stern if I had burped into the mic there. But yeah, I think I've still tried to keep things in control. I've cut out carbs other than cheating on Chick-fil-A yesterday because I was in one of those moods. It was like a long week of work, and it was perfectly fine, but it was just like drained. And the night before, I also didn't sleep because like there was another apartment nearby who had a big party going on, and the bass was just like going loud for the entire time, like up until 4 a.m. And I'm not like old guy who's like, well, you kids keep it down and like banging. Like I've actually had my neighbors down below bang on the floor with me before when I've had friends over, because they haven't. I think they moved out. But they would do that. They would just like grab a broom and like hit the floor. It actually happened while we were doing shrooms that time, which really tripped me out because I felt like they did it 100 times, and I started hitting the floor back, and we felt connected that way. The shrooms thing is another conversation for another time. But I try to keep shit in order, but I broke because I just didn't sleep that night. The bass kept me up. I was miserable, and I just wanted to have carbs to make me feel better. So that was what I did. But trying to keep things in order, but me keeping things in order still doesn't compare to like Julian Edelman, who's like shooting fucking PEDs into his cereal and directly into his urethra, and he's getting even more jacked, and his beard's getting only better somehow. He doesn't fucking look like a Barry Bonds freak monster, even though he's probably taking as many PEDs. So it does make me wonder if I'm doing enough to keep up with things, or if like I am just not seeing the right people. Like, should I really be seeing the people that Rami Malek sees? Should I be seeing the people that Julian Edelman abuses and calls coach? Probably not. But so I don't know. I think it's a self-reflective thing to think about. I think the Eskimo brodom, still a great accomplishment for me to pick up this first Oscar win. But overall, I think there's a bit of a concern for me that I'm not doing my part in keeping up with the Joneses. And as a single guy, who eventually I need to stop being a single guy, I think would be the goal. That'd be nice. Though I've thought about it recently. Like one of my closest friends has a kid, and the kid's adorable. Seems like they're doing a great job raising him, and he's married. They have a kid and whatever. I really can't imagine having a child right now because I just like want to throw myself off a bridge. Not real suicide thoughts, but just like those like, this would be nice if like we were just kind of done with the whole like living thing. Like I think more of like I would like some other choice to be made for me where like everything just kind of changed, where I got like sucked into another dimension, like Into the Spider-Verse thing would be nice, where all of a sudden I was like in another dimension. I was kind of similar, but I still was it was a new thing because I just get bored. I think I really just get bored more than anything. So that's sort of where I am with it. And I don't know that's an appealing enough package to want to have a child with. But more than that, I just feel selfish still in a way where I guess I thought that flip would switch. That was backwards. That switch would flip, as what I thought would happen. And it just hasn't. Like, I just haven't. I thought I'd be at least like married by 30. And then I had a pretty noteworthy freak out then, which if you've been reading the premium emails, which I assume some of you who are listening to this right now on Patreon have done, you'll know more about that story. But yeah, I tried moving with somebody when I was 30, thought that was going to be the one where like I could finally get to the finish line. And instead I just got panicky with it and focused on the negative. And then, some other girls were talking to me and that distracted me. And I think that since that, I've just been like mentally not there with anything. And that's not the best. It's not the best when you're at the age where you should be building something. It's also like there are people who I've talked to who I like quite a bit and who are great. And there are other mitigating factors like distance or whatever that I probably can't work out long term. But overall, it's one I say, but also I fucking say but overall way too much. That's one of my transition phrases that I lean on as a verbal crutch, and it's not the best. It's better than saying like a lot, which I've cut down on. But saying but overall is a poor summary point because it never actually ends what I'm talking about either. I'm really an idiot, I think would be the more you'll realize when we do this podcast. Yes, but overall, that one was deliberate. I don't know that I'm there. I don't know that I'm there, and I don't know that I'm going to be there. So I think this podcast will probably touch on that topic a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of personal reflection that's going to go on here, and I think this Eskimo bro situation, while it's great for me to pick up this Oscar, great for me to pick up the Super Bowl win, great for me to probably pick up whatever NBA Finals win, because I can only assume every girl I've ever hooked up with is hooked up with some basketball player, because that's just what girls do. They just need that big old Tootsie Roll, that king size Tootsie Roll dick in your life. That's sort of what the situation is for me. So I think prepare to hear about this a lot on the podcast. If you haven't noticed from to all the girls I've tolerated emails, these are thoughts that I have a lot. I think there's been a lot of reflecting on the past and things I've done wrong, things other people have done wrong, things which just went south for whatever reason. That'll be a thing that I talk about a bit. Also, I feel weird drinking water because there's nobody to fill the air. So just enjoy the sounds of me drinking water. Ooh, it was like you were here with me enjoying the water. That's what it's a little ASMR. Hey, you're here with me enjoying water. We're drinking water together. Don't you like drinking water with me? And that was probably really creepy, right? That's what ASMR, just kind of creepy in general. So I want to close out shows. I'm not going to go over an hour with you guys because it would be really fucking narcissistic to go over an hour talking by myself. And I'm really not a narcissist. I don't know if the concept of this podcast and me talking alone is inherently narcissistic, but I would say that if you are thinking that, I would look at the early part of the show. I'm just a person who doesn't feel like empowered enough to create content in a public way by myself. So it's not a narcissist. It's just me trying to do something. So take that to the bank. It's not an American Psycho thing. It's more of a person breaking out of their shell and thriving in the sunlight. I think let's view it like that. Let's view it positively. But I want to end shows where I just want to talk about something weird on the internet because I've always enjoyed talking about weird internet things. And I know there are a lot of places now that do that better. Tosh.0, of course, really great at doing some stuff. But there is this Reddit, which I stumbled upon this week. And it was in part because of the Cumtown guys. And I don't think they've talked about it on their show. But it just interested me quite a bit because it's very weird. It's a Reddit. If you're not familiar with Reddit, of course, is a social media website. But on Reddit, there exists a bunch of subreddits. And those are little subcategories, little communities of people who are passionate about certain things. So, like, you could follow r/squared circle if you like wrestling. You could follow, like talked about before, r/Barstool Sports. Reddit.com/r/Barstool Sports. They go there and they're all talking about their favorite Barstool personalities and usually being mean about them and saying negative things. But it's people who are passionate about a certain degree of something is really the main takeaway. I follow r/bustypetite. That's a great subreddit to follow if you like girls who are large-breasted and not too wide-waisted. You want to keep that. You want them to basically look like a stick figure with boobs. That's always the goal to have in life. But this subreddit, which I stumbled upon, is called... It's going to be tough when I get the giggles and I'm just by myself and I feel like a crazy person. It's called r/BangMyBully. And if you go there, it's reddit.com/r/BangMyBully. And it's a website in which these guys, I guess, are into being cucked. And they come up with scenarios using porn clips or, I guess, perhaps real-life clips. I'm not clear. And then they have headlines. These are the all-time ones. If you go to any subreddit, you can go to the top section, and you can sort by links from all time. So you can see the most popular posts that have ever existed in this thriving community. 11,667 people belong to r/BangMyBully. And the top post ever is one with 328 upvotes, so not a huge one, but clearly a success. It's a clip from, I presume, black.com, based on the filming and the fact that it's a black man thrusting into a white woman. And the headline is, "Your drunk sister wanted you to see how much she enjoys your bully." And then there's more. There are ones with text on them. Like there's this one, which is called Party Crasher. And it looks like a meme post. It's two girls who are in a loop, sucking a penis, which is of reasonable quality. It has a bit of a boomerang quality to it. It's a bit of a curvature and girthy in a way, which wouldn't fly well if it were a boomerang, but it's got some similar notes. And it says, after your old school bully, not your old school bully. After your old school bully crashed your garden party, beat you up and left you in a heap on the ground, your wife and her sister took no time in stripping him and each other naked and servicing his big cock right over you in front of everyone. Let me see what the comments on this are, actually. So I did prepare a little for the show. Like I did write notes and stuff, but I didn't go fully down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to do it as we speak. So the comment so somebody just asking for the source, so nothing too crazy. It's not people in the comments acting it out. I'll read another one. This one has a gal. It's that angle, the back of the balls shot. If you're familiar with adult films, he's diving deep in there. There's a lot of fluid. I think he might be ejaculating as he does it. And it's a GIF again, and it says, "I agreed to let him fuck her to leave me alone. But what is it about my bully and not understanding my wife can get pregnant?" So it's a lot of cuck fantasies. I don't. Your girlfriend said she was going to convince her bully is the headline on this one, and then it's a Snapchat or a video made to look like a Snapchat where they have the caption put over it, and it says, "Your GF said she's never sucked a cock this big. Her pussy is next. She'll never feel your shrimp emoji cock again." So I don't know that other people find cuckery as amusing. But the idea to me that there are people who are fantasizing about that and sharing in their passion with others on Reddit is pretty interesting. It's odd to me that this is a thing. There's a lot of things that are odd to me, to be honest. Like the incest thing. I don't have siblings. I'm an only child, so I can't fully relate to why that's such a popular genre right now. If you go to any sort of adult website, you'll find on that front page a lot of incest-based scenarios. I don't. Oh boy. I'm still browsing the subreddit as I talk to you guys. There's a headline. "I get nervous when she goes out sometimes." And then there's a text. This is, I'm going to presume fictional. It's a text with a person who's called Wifey, and Wifey. Oh, you know what? It's backward, I think. "Are you okay? You never texted when you got there. Babe, I'm serious. Are you fine? You seem kind of mean from your messages. Tris." And then the reply is ... And then it's a girl with another like Snapchat style photo next to her with a gigantic penis in her mouth as she stares into the camera, and it says, "Yes, now stop whining." So the assumption here is that the guy is texting and worried about her. And apparently he's billed as Wifey in her phone, which doesn't make sense. But I'll stop looking at r/BangMyBully. But you know what? I won't. The local black bullies think it's funny to tease you by saying your mom is a slutty tattoo, but you know she would never have something like that. And then then the GIF is of a mom with a slutty tattoo over her vagina having sex with two black men. So I would go to r/BangMyBully and check it out, if not for masturbatory purposes, but for human anthropology purposes. There's a lot of weird corners of the internet which I don't know that we're going to find. I'm going to personally try to dig up for the sake of this podcast, but it is something that always amuses me to think about the fact that there are people out there who are fantasizing about Nelson Muntz railing their mom, or probably more so Black Nelson Muntz, just railing their mom and their wife. And also they're sharing in this enthusiasm with other people. So there's just a bunch of guys hanging out and conjuring up scenarios in which their significant others are cucking them in a variety of ways. Not only cucking them with just like a dude off the street or like some sexy like dude. So even if you want to watch your wife get like fucked by a dude, and I would not be into that, and I've never been a devil's threesome guy, and I don't want to hear about girls I'm hooking up with. They're hooking up with other girls, even if it's in the early stages where they're like, oh yeah, like I hooked up with this other guy. It's like, what? Like, don't keep that. No, like save that for somebody else. Despite all that, do enjoy a good 2-guy, 1-girl film, because it's like, but that's more of like oh, look at you just can't help yourself. Like you just got to get one in every hole, don't you? Like, I think that's sort of the philosophy there. Or, it's also like hey, look, let's just talk about all the weird porn fetishes. Like, I don't think I have anything that's as weird as r/BangMyBully, but I would say that, like, I also enjoy the casting genre films, and not just the backroom casting couches, the net video girls of the world, the Czech casting, really great. That's from the Czech Republic. There's girls being casted over there too. I don't know that you would be so racist to assume they don't have an entertainment industry, but they have to get casted over there as well. So those are websites I enjoy, but those are also kind of like a collusion-y, like where you're colluding, or is it colluding? Let's say manipulating. You're manipulating. I assume you're not colluding. You're manipulating a girl into doing something that you would like. Which in the case of those adult films is some sort of sexual situation. It may surprise you. It's not that they're like seducing them into playing some sort of Connect 4 game, which would interest me, to be honest. I think there's no better way to learn about a person than playing on Connect 4. But there's sort of a thing there that seems like it's a little rapey. I don't want to throw out the other. I've thrown out the 2 R words in this episode accidentally, but there's something that does feel a little bit like that with those videos. Not the best feeling, but I don't think that's necessarily indicative of my preferences. Like, I certainly would not be able to function. Like, couldn't get a rod up if I were, like, let's say, holding a job over a girl's head, and then I'm like, yeah, well, maybe if you blow me. Like, shoplifter.com is another one. Shoplift, the lift part is spelled with a Y, so I guess maybe the girls work for Lyft on the side. But it's a website where there's a security guard who catches a girl doing some form of shoplifting, and then forces her to have sex, and not forces her, but just this word that I can't come up with is really upsetting. It starts with a C. God, why am I like burping? It's fucking 9 a.m. I didn't even do anything today. It's still not colluding. It's definitely still not colluding. There's a word here which I am really struggling to think of, and it's upsetting. And if there were a second person here on this podcast, they might be able to tell me what the word is. But anyway, it's one of those words that people use in like the Me Too things where it's like, you're exerting power over her to do something. And sometimes the girl enjoys it and sometimes she doesn't. And when it's a little weird when they make like I don't like this face. But it's still works enough for me. So anyway, I would say that, and this is me being, personally revealing. These are things that I enjoy in my porn travels that I'm sharing with you guys, because I'm not judging the r/BangMyBully guys. It's just interesting to me to note how deep these rabbit holes go these days, to the point where you have these guys who are functionally independent content creators making content around their bully fetishes. They're not going out there and actually having their wife have sex with a bully, one would presume. I guess maybe you could dig him up on Facebook and then find that he's just like a washed up piece of shit. And I don't think that would be the guy you'd want banging your wife. But I assume a lot of bullies aren't really thriving right now, but I don't know. I don't have enough bully-based longitudinal stats to back that up. But I would say that there's something weird about that dynamic, but maybe we're just at a point where we should just be like, hey, this is all totally cool and normal. Like, I don't know how to answer these questions that nobody's asking. I don't know how to fully address it, because to me it seems really strange that you would be into that and this passionate about it, to build a community of fellow bully cucks who want to share their fantasized scenarios. But it's beautiful also in a way, because all these people are being brought together. Like the same thing too. Another really weird fetish is like guys who like watching a girl get fat. I don't think that's quite as popular now in terms of mainstream, because a lot of what we see is girls getting anorexic, like Charlotte McKinney, who was a busty model for a while, and now she's like as flat as a board and really thriving in her new, very empowering for her, I'm sure, to just not be eating and wasting away for the sake of trying to become a legitimate model. I think overall this is just like a testament to the ability to bring people together, like a feeder fetish where you watch a girl get fat. Like, I think that's what I was going to say, was there would be guys who would like basically be sugar daddies to girls and just like pay for them to like watch them eat food, and then they get fat, and like then I think you can still see it if you search YouTube for like feeder fetish. You'll find these videos of like girls just like grabbing their fat white trash bellies because some dude's paying it and they got like little stretch marks on them, and they're like, "Ooh, look at my stretch marks. I'm a big fat girl. Ooh, I'm so sexy, baby. Ooh, you want me to eat this for you, baby?" And like, I think that may be an impression that I do in the future. That's actually how I envisioned Rihanna when I wrote that post that got me so much trouble. I don't know. There's a lot of weird fetishes out there, but I think in some ways, I guess, to put a cap on this, but overall, I would say it's sort of beautiful in a way that all these people can be brought together in support of weird shit. And I think Reddit is the place more than anywhere who does that and empowers these people to be their best selves and to let their wives get imaginarily fucked by a bully. Perhaps their sister too. Their wife and their sister both hanging out, getting fucked by their old school bully. So that's enough conversation for a first podcast. So thank you guys for listening. If you're listening on another platform, which is not Patreon, which I don't know if this podcast is going to go somewhere that's not that, but like the podcast. Give the podcast 5 stars. If this were on iTunes, let's say, give the podcast 5 stars and leave a review. That's going to help a lot with getting this podcast off the ground. And if you're listening to it on Patreon, and you're one of the first people in the world, you're going to hear me talk for an hour straight by myself. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being willing to support what I'm trying to do. You're not supporting me like the big titted girls with imaginary number bra sizes are being supported, but you are supporting me in the way that you can, and that does mean a lot to me. So thank you guys for doing that. And yeah, give the podcast 5 stars and a rating if we're doing this on iTunes. And I am terrified at the idea now of this being on iTunes, but it may be on iTunes at some point. So there may be another one of this next week, maybe 2 weeks, but I think there's a decent chance there'll be another one of this next week. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again soon. You know what? We're so close to hitting an hour on the nose. I'm just going to stretch this out, stretch it out. Okay, bye, guys.